thanks for joining us. That was a graphic representation of some of the issues that the original inhabitants of the FCT have been demanding for. And we'll be putting this in focus or in perspective today as we discuss this issue. And joining me on our panel today is to my immediate left, Rifkatu Adamuchidawa, a retired civil servant, and of course, an indigene of the FCT. Welcome to Nigeria today.
Thank you very much.
And next to her is a legal practitioner, Mr. Musa Panya, who over the last 3 years has been very involved in this issue. Mr. Panya, welcome to Nigeria today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Now let's start off really with Mrs. Chidawa. Let's really go back a bit and look at the process that brought about this. Those that were in Abuja originally were supposed to be relocated, as it was said, and then paid compensation. So how did we arrive at this situation?
Well, just like you rightly said, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and we are really very excited that at least the voice is being heard. Right from the onset, when people started thinking and saying that Abuja is a no man's land, there were trees and nobody, I keep wondering and asking, if there was nobody in Abuja, how did we come about Garki, Wabalada, Abaji, Kwali, Buari? Where did all these names, came from? And coming to reality, and thank God that it has come this way. People were evacuated. As you see me talking to you, my mother was a princess in my Tama here, and they left to Kubo. You can imagine what that means, leaving your ancestral grave and relocating to somewhere else. It was said from the beginning that people will be compensated, which never happened. And so the drag has been on. Well, thank God for today, and thank God for the people that are still fighting, and thank God for the level we are in today. From all indication, the bad days are going gradually, and the beautiful days are here today.
Well, I like the way that you sum it up really, but I still go back a bit to what you refer to as the bad days. And let me take up at this point, Mr. Panya.
Yes.
Now, talking about the process of compensation, I mean, I think I was old enough around here to have witnessed a lot of what happened.
Yes.
What really got us into this situation?
All right. You recall that on 3rd February 1976, late General Murtala Mohammed, head of state, made a proclamation creating the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And in that broadcast, he did say that the indigenous inhabitants of the area will be resettled to their previous states at government expense, so that Abuja will be left vacant and virgin, and it is to be a home for all Nigerians. Now that was the noble vision of the visionaries, General Gawan, that Murtala now saw through. And then the very next day, 4th February 1976, General Murtala Mohammed signed Decree number 6 of 1976, creating the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And Section 1 took the whole 9,000 square kilometers of Abuja, the whole territory, its ownership, the property, the whole territory, and placed the ownership of it in the federal government of Nigeria. But Murtala did say that in order to avoid issues of speculations, and so that no state will lay claim to the new capital, Section 7 provided for payment of compensation. Payment of compensation by Murtala's own vision and plan was to be done within 12 months. 12 months. And here we are today. That compensation that was due and payable at 3rd February 1976 has still not been paid to today, 42 years afterwards. Yes, there have been some attempts and resettlements over the years.
Mr. Panya, let me come in at this point so at least we get the facts, because we're dealing with history now.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, I'm old enough to have witnessed the process, and I was just close by here in Niger, coming here always, and so And you talked about, just for us to get it correct, factually, that the process of compensation, was it not completed, or it developed issues? Some people were actually paid, but obviously later there were controversies. Let's put that in perspective, really.
Yeah, this is what happened. Murtala was killed on 13th February 1976, and for all intents and purposes, Abuja died with him that day. He died with him that day. Obasanjo, who succeeded Murtala, now set out to implement this vision and to bring to fruition the creation of a new capital. So they commissioned the geography department of the University of Ibadan to do a demographic survey of the territory, in particular to do a census of the communities, the inhabitations, and the people, and to come out with a report to let the cost of resettling. By then, the population of Abuja was put about 400,000 people. Today, with the last count of Millennium Development Goals census, made up of over 842 indigenous communities. Abuja has 7 tribes. Okay? Originally. So, and the bill, as in your introduction, you rightly did say, the bill was put at 2.8 billion. Now, even that year in 1978, the total annual budget of Nigeria was barely 400,000.
Yes.
So what that meant was that it was going to take about 7 years budget to execute the resettlement program as was.
For a program like this, time is essence, and so we can't probably go through that. But what I just wanted us to establish really is that the fact that the controversy that ultimately attended the process meant that you didn't even have correct records. You did not know who was who and what had been done. And of course, some people then were moved to other states, and some got to Niger, some got to Nasarawa, and all that. Let me first of all get the input of Mrs. Chidawa now. Still talking about that process. In fact, when you talked about your mother being a princess of Maitama, first of all, I just thought about, if you could recall, just what Maitama looked like then.
Just like a settlement, you understand. And then for the people to be evacuated to Kuba here, they started. I think the process started, but with just like he said and just like you read, corruption that was on ground. A lot of things went wrong, and the compensation was not completed, and so people decided to remain where they are. And now that it has come to remain, I mean, when you even look at it, as he rightly said, Abuja, I don't know, can I ask you one question? When you present programs, you always say 36 states and the FCT.
Yes.
What does that mean? Sometimes, it makes me wonder why you always say 36 states and FCT. From all indication, what I believe is that FCT is part of Nigeria and must be treated as a state.
Yes,
because when the people were allowed to remain, because at a point they said those who will prefer to remain should remain.
Yes.
And so people decided to remain.
But but in doing all these, like I was saying earlier, ultimately, all the facts got muddled up. Who actually got compensated, who didn't get the compensation, and and I can recall that from the Third Republic, it became an issue that consistently government would go back to try to ascertain who got what, who didn't get what. But then that was the beginning of the agitation, and then the question of giving people what was its due. So Barrister Paya, tell us now, over the years, what really has been the crux of the demand of the original habitats?
Justice. Justice. Our fathers and us voluntarily basically gave up our land for a national purpose. And it was a noble thing, Gawan and Murtala. It was noble. If only they had kept to that. And it's an obligation when you compulsory acquire a property government is called the right of executive domain. You must pay compensation. At the time, in 1976, Section 31 of the 1963 Constitution was in play. And that Constitution said, pay adequate compensation. Like I said, Murtala made sure that the compensation thing was also legislated in Section 7 of the FCT Act. Problem is the cost was humongous. And then the federal government decided
there were committees.
There was too much. It was so costly that instead of executing resettlement across the board, they would just concentrate on the Federal Capital City, what they call FCC, in developing the seat of government. So at that point, Olusegun Obasanjo did sign a memo and a gazette that whatever scarce resources was available will be channeled towards developing the capital city, the city of but outside of the capital city, the other people who are outside the capital city, if they want, they are free to remain. They no longer have to be resettled. And in signing that memo, he did say that those people will be the citizens of Abuja. So at that point, the policy changed from compensation and resettlement to compensation and integration. That is how we got here.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Barrister Paya, for your initial comments. And you talked about justice. We'll come to the issue of justice just after this timeout, when we speak to Nigerians about the topic of today and really what led to us, the judgment of the Court of Appeal.
I feel that it's right to allow the FCT to run as a state and then let them have their governors, commissioners who are indigenous in nature. That way it will give them a sense of belonging.
They have educated ones. There are people that can man those offices. So if Court of Appeal has given that ruling or judgment in favor of their request, to me it's a welcome development.
All their demands as regards to, including them in policy making, as far as this issue of development is concerned, it also should be granted to them. But the idea of giving them a state, I don't think that one is feasible for them.
As a state now, they will be able to do things that concerns other local government. They will plan well to other local government.
Abuja should be treated as a state.
Like every other state?
Like any other state. They have donated their land, they were the ones supplying people with food. So why can't you have the same particular treatment like others?
It's still okay. What we need is somebody that can deliver. Okay. Somebody that can give people what they want.
Well, Nigerians, they are speaking about the court judgment that has brought us to this particular junction. Less than 2 weeks ago, the Court of Appeal in Abuja delivered a judgment on a matter that has been subsisting before it. And now I'd like to come to Barrister Paya. I'll come to you, Madam, very soon, but it's essential that we look at this issue of the court judgment, because that really is the crux of the matter. A journalist who has written so much about Abuja, Martins Oloja, used these words. He said, "Justice at last for Abuja Indigenes." And you talked about justice. Now let's first of all identify what were the prayers before the court, and really what was the holding in that judgment.
We had 9 prayers. The first was that by virtue of the combined provisions of Section 1473, Section 299, Section 14.3, and Section 42, by the combined provisions of those 4 sections, the indigenes of Abuja are entitled to ministerial representation in the federal cabinet. That was the first declaration we sought. The court granted that. The second was that the continuous denial and refusal of past and present presidents to so appoint an indigene of the FCT into the federal cabinet since 1999 is a gross violation of our constitutional rights, and indeed tantamount to infringing our fundamental human rights against discrimination. So that was prayer 2. We had 9. three.
Let's just talk about the most. I mean,
Those are
the critical ones now.
The third and the fourth one basically said that the fourth one was that it was a breach of our fundamental human rights against discrimination. The fourth one was directing the president, the current president, to immediately make that appointment.
Okay.
So the struggle has been about voice. Look.
Okay, let's bring in. Sorry, I didn't cut in now. Let's bring in Mrs. Chidawa now. He just talked about the struggle has been for a voice. But even as he spoke, what came to my mind also was this definition of the indigene of Abuja. Is it going to be difficult now? Because now we talk about original inhabitants, and Abuja is supposed to be for all. So who now is an indigene of Abuja? Before you talk about a legal definition, let's just talk about So who will qualify?
Just like he said, we have the original inhabitants.
Yes.
And everybody knows that there are people and tribes that live in Abuja.
Yes.
So it's not a difficult thing to start saying because this one has been here maybe for 40 years or whatever, you will not understand or recognize who are the people that were really in Abuja. So you cannot, it's not a confusing thing for you to start saying who, okay, let me bring this instance. Now he has said if we have the ministerial post, it's a matter of calling, we have emirs, we have chiefs. You cannot just go, okay, when you are looking for an appointment or a school, you have to go and receive a clearance from the people that will identify you. So are we staying here without people that know, that have knowledge of us?
But the original idea of Abuja was to be a land for all.
It was to be a land for all, but there were people here, a land for all, which we did not say no to because we are peace-loving people and we are interested in unity. The essence of Abuja is to bring everybody into the center of Nigeria. And we sacrifice. The indigenous people sacrifice the land for the sake of unity. That Abuja, Nigeria will be one. And the meeting point is in Abuja. So that doesn't mean that sometimes when you are given appointments, you go outside and look for people, when the people that sacrifice do not benefit. There's no justice there.
Are we struggling now really with definition of citizens of Abuja?
No. The basic and simple definition would be people who were domiciled and inhabited the territory as of 3rd February 1976. That would be the most practical. But I'll take away the problem. There's a legal definition.
Yes.
The Federal Character Act of 2004 defines who an Abuja indigene is in chapter 3 of section A and B. A says any person who cannot lay claim to any other state and is now resident in Abuja, who cannot lay claim to any other state, is defined as citizen. But more particularly, because we presented this before the court, section B says all persons who were born of indigenous parentage as of 23rd February 1976 and who have continually resided in Abuja are indigenes of Abuja. And that's what the Federal Character Commission uses to talk about quotas and what have you know. But there's a legal definition.
Well,
I was born in 68. I was 8 years old when Murtala made that proclamation. I remember watching it and hearing it on radio.
So that's what he said. June 12th. You remember June 12th? That notorious June 12th.
Yes.
I remember that June 12th when they were going to pronounce a judgment between Abiola's case. Come and see the way people were leaving Abuja and carrying 911 and going back to their... I told my neighbor, I said, where are you going? You think those of us that are here should stay and be killed? That is to tell you that people already have where they are coming from. But there are people that no matter what happens, they have no place to run.
Yes, like I said, I'm struggling really with if it's possible to
just like he said,
clearly
those who cannot claim,
yes,
they cannot claim. They remain here. They can't run to anywhere. But people who can run to somewhere.
But you see, does this not defeat the notion of a land for all? I mean, part of the reason why actually Nigeria moved away from Lagos was to create a land where everybody could have a sense of beginning. So if we start talking about a land, this land belonging to just a given set of people that have been defined, does not mean that ultimately we're losing the dream.
That's exactly the comment. That's why I said Abuja died with Murtala on 13th February. It died because his position was that all the inhabitants would be resettled outside of the territory, and FCT will be left virgin. Nobody can lay claim to it. It never happened. This is the problem. You see why I said Abuja died with Murtala?
Well, you said Abuja died with Murtala, but I think that Abuja has resurrected. So
Abuja is a reality today, but
yes,
it is a ghost.
Well, it
is a ghost.
So you say, but
of the visioner.
Well, so you say, but I mean, it's arguable, like you said, but substantially, I mean, all of us are here today because Abuja is a reality.
Yeah.
And that's the fact. That's why I've seen 9 studios in NTA Abuja.
Yeah.
So, but let's just go a bit further, really, with regards to, now that this has happened, what is the feeling among many of you who have been involved in this agitation?
We are so happy with the declaration of the court. Now we know that we are heading somewhere where we want to be treated just like they said. You could hear people's voice that let Abuja, be treated as a state, where we will be able to have a ministerial slot. We have senators like other states do, and the House of Representatives, and other appointments, just like other states are treated.
But you do have a senator, and you have.
We have one. We need more. It's not enough. We can. Other states have how many? How can we go and have one, for God's sake? So it's not proper, and there is no justice, like he said. So we want justice to reign.
So, but to some people, this is not adequate. There are some that still think that not enough has been done. It's part of this court decision. What is the issue?
You have to start somewhere. The point that needs to be made clear here is that with the current law, the Constitution, 1999 Constitution, the current law, this is what this judgment has said. With the current law, we ought to have had a minister since May 1999 in the federal cabinet. Now going to 20 years, Wilfred, without a voice in the affairs of this nation. And yet, we are the owners of the land. This is you see the point?
Yes, well,
it's about giving us a voice.
Yes, sir.
Look at it again in practical terms. On the average, the salary of a minister is, since 1999 has been like 1 million. Now it's over 1 million a month. Let's just take 12 million a year. Multiply 12 million by 20 years now. That's over 240 million.
But I know that it's not the money you're talking about.
But that's not it's not the money we're after.
I mean, like, I will need to actually stop here now because I understand that our time is up. It's really been nice speaking to you, Barrister Musa Panya. Thank you very much for joining us on Nigeria Today.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
And Mrs. Rifkatu Chidao, it's also been a pleasure having you.
I'm so happy to be here, and I'm glad I've said it all. We need to be heard.
But I'm sure also that at the same time you also wish that Abuja can be a land to every Nigeria.
Oh no, that was why we gave it from the beginning, for the sake of unity, that Nigeria will stand. And that was why we gave our ancestral land, so that everybody will enjoy and live at peace, at least for the sake of unity. Okay, and Mr. Paya, Abuja is back on its own. Amen. Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming to Nigeria Today, and that's our program for today. We've been looking at the status of Abuja's original inhabitants against the background of the decision of the Court of Appeal. Thanks for watching.